So we are not aligned with Elon Musk.
Well, I'm not aligned with Elon Musk on a lot of things.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whoever you are, whoever is watching. Welcome to the LeadSquared Podcast. I am really excited to be hosting the session today. I have a wonderful speaker with me in Dr. Akhil Shahani, who's part of the Shahani Group of educational institutions who have been in the industry and in the country for over 100 years now. Dr. Akhil is the managing director of the Shahani Group, fourth generation education enterprise in India that spans TSCFM, the business school, Ask Careers and Smart Institute, which is in the EdTech space, and the SAGE Foundation of the Shahani Trust, which is for non-profit skilling. Your work mainly focuses on turning education into employability through industry-aligned curricula, hybrid delivery and placement pipelines as well. And you are an MBA from Kellogg. I think there is a bit of something that we share from there, which I'll come to, and a PhD in education from the University of Liverpool.
Correct.
So wonderful to have you here, Dr. Akhil.
Thank you, Sridhar.
As Akhil for the rest of the chat. So cool. So, 4 generations of education in the family, that's a lot.
Right.
It obviously forces me to ask the first question around that is what part of the, we speak of generation gaps within a father and a son.
That's right.
Now, you've had 4 generations of a family running a particular business.
Right.
Now, in terms of business, obviously, there are larger generation gaps that happen.
Correct.
So, what part of this legacy over the last 100 years have you actually continued, and what part have you changed to meet the growing demands or the new demands of the industry as you've seen it?
Okay, so let me talk a bit about maybe a brief touch on the history of the family, and then you get a sense of where we are.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, I mean, when I say 100 years, we were 100 years in undivided India, of course.
Yes.
My great-grandfather, Tadamal Shahani, was the principal of one of the top Sindhi colleges in Karachi, and my grandfather was in the education textbook publishing industry.
Okay.
Right? Prior to partition. Of course, when he came down to India post-partition, him with a bunch of other Sindhis from the community said, okay, let's actually start uplifting the community through education, and they started co-founding colleges, and he's helped to set up around 24 colleges with some other Sindhi families, and we are still on that board today.
Okay.
However, when you consider education from that point of view, education always was charity, right? So the thing is, wasn't our day job in those days. So we were involved in education, and we were just doing that way. But our day job was in packaging and other businesses.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Right?
Okay.
During my grandfather's time, my father's time. However, I always liked education as a passion for mine, and I realized that there's actually something not perfectly right with the education system. As we all know, is that everyone says we have to change education.
Yep.
Most graduates are not employable, and we saw the same thing in our colleges. I mean, of course, we do have, let's say, high-end colleges in that group, but those were the elite kids, so by default, they would get good jobs anyway, either, because they had great personalities or their papa gave them businesses, right?
Sure.
But the average kid in some of the tier 2 colleges had a tough time getting into a job. So he said, why is that not working out considering education is there? So I said, okay, let's start discovering what can be done to change education. So my passion really was, how can we change education to make kids employable? So when you look at what has changed over the years is that education started off as charity, lowest common denominator. Let's try to find a way to educate the masses, right? The unlimited. Today, educating the masses is still important. However, we realize getting a job and getting a great career is the key outcome, and we define education as basically how well are you able to work in the world of work versus how well you're able to do in the academic scores and exams. So that's how we've changed the model to some extent.
Awesome. That's a very interesting journey. I think you touched on a couple of points where you're talking about starting off as a charity and then being in publishing and all of that as well. So that's a very interesting journey.
Correct.
But if you had to define the group's mission,
right,
in a line, so I'm putting in a bit of a spot there, but if you had to define the mission of the group in a line, what would you say it is today?
Very simple. Ordinary people, extraordinary careers.
Okay.
So again, so just maybe expand a bit about philosophy. The thing is that I think the top 1% of India is really well served. I mean, the IITs, IIMs, the great institutions,
absolutely.
these kids get in, right? Even the good colleges. What happens to the guy who's he's a security guard? He wants his son to work in an office, or the lady who is a domestic help. Nobody wants their kids to be blue-collar workers. Everybody aspires for them kids to get into a corporate world. So what we said is, how can you take the average person in India, I'm talking about, let's say, lower middle class, aspirational class, to get them great white-collar jobs, or to grow in, as we say, Viksit Bharat. So we need to get millions and millions of kids to actually be employable. So hence, ordinary people, extraordinary careers.
Got it.
Very, very clear what we're
doing. I think that gives triggers an interesting thought in my head is you're trying to cater to a set of clients or set of families or students who are not necessarily the most well off, let us say.
Not the most well, or even academically brilliant, either way.
Yeah,
Both
right.
ways, yeah.
But in terms of running a business,
Right.
it is something that has to succeed commercially as well.
Right.
While you are in the project of nation building, which is the larger good, the greater good that the organization is doing, you have to balance it out with commercial success as well.
Absolutely right.
So how has the group gone about trying to do that?
So the way to look at it,
You must have developed certain new models of looking at
of course
business,
we have, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you where the group is, and the Shahani Group, where we have different entities, right?
Right.
So starting off with Smart Institute, which is the for-profit arm of the business. Basically, our original model was as an EdTech company. We actually, all right, let me take a step back. My doctorate in employability from the University of Liverpool actually said, okay, let's figure out what makes kids employable, right? And we came up with a framework where we said most employers are looking for people with so-called soft skills, right? Everyone wants that, right? And this is a problem not just in India, this is a problem globally, right?
Right.
So we said, let's come up with a framework that defines employability, because as Peter Drucker said, what can be measured can be managed, right?
Correct.
Because people say soft skills and there's no definition, you can't really do anything about it, right? So our framework we define is something called the ASK benchmarks, attitude, skills, knowledge benchmarks, where we measure kids on 5 parameters: communication skills, critical thinking, collaboration, proactiveness, and professionalism, right?
Okay.
Now, once we've defined these parameters, we measure them while they do a program with us. That means that when they enter, we measure them on a scale of 0 to 10 on these 5 parameters. We measure them as they're going through the program. And of course, we do have a lot of initiatives to develop their critical thinking, to develop their collaboration, develop other aspects. So the thing is that the assessment model has changed. Now, with this as the core, in Smart Institute, we then said, okay, let's start using an online platform. This is post-COVID days, right?
Sure.
Where we said, okay, let's try to use an online app where we're able to get kids employable for the banking industry.
Okay.
Why the banking industry? Because average kids generally come with a BCom or a BA, right? They're not the engineers or the high-end techies, right? So he said, if I want to get a kid who comes from a BCom background from a tier 2, tier 3 college, right? And we want to help them get a job in the banking sector because they're the ones who get the high salaries. What do we need to do? So we started with our model of actually training kids over a period of 3 months to 6 months through online programs, developing these parameters, train and place them purely online. And that worked very well.
Okay.
Now that's a for-profit model using technology. Now there's a whole bunch of kids who are not able to spend that money. So therefore we had Sage Foundation, where we get a lot of CSR funding, not surprisingly from the banks and their CSR departments, to say, okay, can you train the kids, the sons of the security guards, to get a job in our bank? Okay. So I've got middle-class kids and slightly low middle-class kids paying for their courses, and kids who don't pay for the courses, right? Now, of course, later on we then moved into partnering with colleges, because as we know, everyone's moved from online to offline that way, right? So we said, okay, there's a whole bunch of these tier 2, tier 3 colleges across Bombay and other parts of India, where these kids do get a BCom, but they're the kids who would become the Swiggy delivery guys,
right,
or the office boys. They'll never become the white collar people, right? And they'll be stuck in that cycle.
Right.
So we said, let's actually bring our courses to these colleges, and we've partnered to run courses in banking, in animation, in digital marketing, cybersecurity. But in all cases, we go to the college and say, look, right now your revenue is, let's say, X, because you're classically a government funded college, you're not able to really scale up. We will come in with high-end courses. We will train your kids and do a revenue share. And we bring in all the expertise that comes in. In fact, we like to call ourselves, what we want to be is a Marriott of education. That means that, Marriott, as you know, basically the largest hotel chain in the world with a whole bunch of brands, but they don't own any hotels.
Right.
They operate the hotels.
Yeah.
So what we said, there's actually a model there where there are a lot of colleges across India which can be managed. And a lot of partners will be happy to work with us to manage them. So that's how we're growing.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting model, because there are some 70,000 education institutes, higher education institutes in the country today.
Right.
Yeah. So that model is very
and
right for this model then.
And what's brilliant is the fact that a lot of the education institutions, very often they tend to be started as charitable initiatives of other families. Right? So very often it's a classic case of somebody who's done very well in the chemicals industry and said, chalo, let me set up a BCom college in my native place in the name of my father. It's running, but because it's set up as a charity, it's running at basically as a hand to mouth, and the trustee maybe puts in money all the time. Very often now what's happening is nowadays the second generation of the trustees are there, and they say, look, we have to focus our time in running the chemicals business. We don't have the bandwidth to run this college. However, we can't close the college because it looks like we're bad on a family name. So it runs in this sort of like limbo. And the kids come in, they don't pay much in terms of fees, but they also don't get much in terms of outcomes. So we come in and say, let's upgrade these kids, because these kids want to do more, but they don't have the
avenue to do
absolutely right.
Yeah. So given this model of operations, I think a lot of your curriculum and what you do in your colleges would have to be extremely industry aligned.
Absolutely right.
So from an industry's perspective, let's say whether it's the IT or the software services or banking or whatever it is, right? How do you engage with them, and how do they engage with you to build this sort of network of, let's say, academic courses, which feeds back to their own hiring pool?
Well, I mean, you actually just hit the nail on the head. I mean, the fact that, there actually is amount of self-interest from our side and their side, because as you know, the thing is that I think statistics say that almost, 52% of entry-level jobs they can't find the right talent.
Employability is a big
employability issue, right? Yes. So the thing is that the jobs are available. They can't find the right people. The kids are there. They want to get the jobs, but they're just a mismatch, right? So we said, look, the thing is, and everybody talks about industry academic connection, right? So we said, okay, we will walk the talk. So we actually go to industry, we go to the HR manager and say, look, you actually want to solve your hiring problem. Why don't you just talk to us? Tell us what you want. To give an example, the whole GCC industry, the Global Capability Centers, they're booming like crazy, right? And it's not just in the metros of Bangalore, Bombay, and Delhi.
No, it's all across tier 2.
Across India, right? So especially in the tier 2 towns. Now, these guys say, hey, we need to have trained talent. Because for them, a best way to actually reduce their running costs is to reduce the time they spend training. They're saying, look, we will take the training on our head, right? We will understand what you're looking for. We will align our curriculum with what you want. But also more importantly is that we will even ask you to help us with giving us faculty or help us with trainers. So in a way, what you would spend, let's say, 50,000 rupees training a kid, it'll cost 20,000 rupees, and that's all the kid themselves will pay for that money. So it's a win-win. So we've actually had no problems getting industry on board
to actually work with you guys and build out these courses.
Well, anything that cuts costs for them, they'll be very happy with.
Okay. I'm going to segue into something else right now, because you mentioned the kind of jobs that we're looking at. You mentioned GCCs and all of that, right? Now, with the growing advancement in AI tech, there is a genuine and real, not threat is too big a word to use, but a real probability that a lot of these jobs get done by AI. Right? Now, in that context, I'm sure you guys are also looking at it very closely and monitoring what you can do and how you can still help this bunch of people, right?
Correct.
So what are your thoughts around this space?
So I think, Sridhar, you and me are old enough to remember when computers were first introduced in offices, right? 1990s. And they all said, hey, the same thing, jobs will just go away and people will just, we'll all be done by computers and things like that, right? So what's interesting is that in the 1980s, a lot of the job ads said a typist wanted. Right? Today, nobody asks for a typist, right? Because we're all typists in our own way, right? So the thing is that jobs will always be there, right? Even when, let's say, the railways were launched, or let's say even when the printing press was launched, scribes got kicked out of their jobs, right? So the thing is that people will always need jobs. Companies will always need to hire human beings. It's just that the types of work that needs to be done will differ, and people will have to learn new skills that way. So I don't think we will get into the dystopian future where we're all sitting on our hands and there's universal basic income and all the work is being done by AI and robots.
So we are not aligned with Elon Musk's vision of the future, where he says that there is going to be universal income for everybody and pretty much no jobs available.
Well, I'm not aligned with Elon Musk on a lot of things.
Okay, just AI. Got it. All right.
But to be honest, the thing is that, just to give you a little context, right? So there was Socrates, 2,500 years ago, actually came out with a code and saying, because in earlier days, he used to transmit information through oral traditions, right? So he actually taught Plato through oral tradition. And Plato said, let's start writing this stuff down. And Socrates said, if people start writing things down, they will lose the ability to remember. Right? And therefore, what will happen is that people become dull and more less intelligent because they're writing stuff down and they have to look at these reading aids. Again, every time there's a new technology, there's always a fear. We've got cell phones, there's brain cancer. So let's not worry about it too much.
All right, cool.
Our kids will have jobs.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't doubt that either. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to harness the technology to have better outcomes for humanity in general. That's typically what has happened with technology. Not all of it, but broadly, yes. Technology has actually enabled humans to have longer lives, better careers, better arts, better everything, right? So that's probably the direction it goes in. So given that, then, what elements of AI would you inculcate in your educational institutions, which enables your students to come out ready? to handle this
great.
new world?
Well, I think basically like with any new technology, right? So, for example, like let's say 5 years ago, you used to teach students Microsoft Office, right?
Right.
Because they had to be proficient in Office technology, or maybe in learning CRM systems, right?
Sure.
So same logic. All you have to do is basically allow them to use AI. They're all using ChatGPT already, right? So what we say is that why don't you learn some of the other tools? I mean, there's Gemini, there's Perplexity, but more importantly, can you start using vibe coding tools like Replit?
Right.
Can you actually use, like, let's say 11 labs to actually come up with voiceovers?
Right.
Start using more complex tools that allow you to do your job well, because the thing is that if you are proficient in a range of tools, you will be highly desired by companies today, because today most companies are all asking for people with AI skills, right?
Right.
So that is the skill sector.
Yes.
That requires two things. One, of course, is the willingness to let them learn by themselves, right? Because the thing is that if they're curious, see, kids are curious, right? No matter what. I mean, I don't know how if your kids are that old, but remember the time they used to just go out and daydream. Papa, why is this happening? They're curious, right?
9 and 5 at mine, so I get a lot of these
mine
questions.
is much older, 31 and 27. But the thing is, it's all the same. But the thing is that people and kids love to learn.
Yes.
So if you say, look, here are the tools, go out and develop stuff yourself. Trust me, they will actually learn a lot more than what we could teach them, right?
Yes.
So in a way, it's more like let 1,000 flowers bloom. Go out, learn AI tools yourself. But more importantly, what's important is for them to get a sense of what AI can or cannot do from a ethics point of view, also what perspective point of view. So we say, look, you use the tools, however, be aware that AI is not a substitute for you thinking, right?
Yes.
So for example, we say, okay, look, the thing is that the more you outsource your thinking to ChatGPT, the less you're able to learn stuff yourself. And if somebody actually asks you a question live, you will not have the answer.
Yeah.
So in a way, a lot of our assessments have now moved more to Vivas, writing stuff live in class versus assignments at home, because you have to keep that mental accuracy.
I think the ability to learn you cannot lose.
You can't lose
If you lose the ability to learn, then it's game over, right?
Exactly.
And same with the ability to analyze, to have your own independent thought to look at what you're looking at.
Exactly, that's true.
Yeah.
And so we say, look, the thing is that AI is a tool, so it's not that we expect you to now sit and write long 500-word assignments, because that can be done by ChatGPT.
Yes.
However, the point is that with ChatGPT in front of you, can you have a debate with each other live in the class? So let's say you say that, okay, look, here's this thing, here let's say a certain topic, controversial topic, you come up in favor of it, you come against it, you can use ChatGPT to research. You got 10 minutes to research, now close your computers and go live. Stuff like that. Because that builds up the skill set, because ultimately it goes back to the idea of developing collaboration, critical thinking, communication, which is what companies want.
Correct.
So part of this, it comes into developing that skill set with them.
And in terms of technology adoption, because India is one of those countries which sort of skipped the world of phone, right?
Absolutely.
We skipped the phones and we went directly mobile. We skipped dumb mobiles and we went directly to the smartphones.
Absolutely
right. In that environment, as an educationist, for you, it becomes very important in how you reach out to your students.
Right.
Because all of these, even in rural India, even in tier 2 today, they do have access to smartphones and a lot of apps and a lot of technology.
Yeah, and very low data costs.
Yeah. So in terms of designing the learning modules, or designing learning content,
right.
How are you guys approaching it in this new world where there is a lot of AI available as well?
So I think it goes back to the idea that nothing can really beat a good mentor who knows you, right? See, because don't forget is that when you're using an AI tool, AI has no context who you are, right? So for example, let's say you and me go to ChatGPT, right? And we ask the same question: how do I keep my wife happy? I mean, may not be any answer, but the point is that ChatGPT doesn't know who my wife is or your wife is, right?
Right.
So therefore, he may come up with a totally different answer.
Different answers, yeah.
And the thing. However, if I've got a good friend who I'm having coffee with or I'm drinking with, he knows what my problem is, right?
Right.
The same logic is that if you have a good teacher in a classroom, very often a good teacher will actually know each student, how good or bad they are. Instead, let's say like, okay, look, I know that, let's say Sunil has problems at home and therefore they tend to be a little shy talking to others. And here's, let's say Sridhar who talks a lot. But is able to manage that. AI can't do that for the kids, right? So that means that when we are changing our UX for kids on phones, see, the thing is that the actual content that they learn on the phone is not very different, right? The thing is that, I mean, you may have more videos or more interactive games. However, the real key to the thing are the live sessions that we run on Zoom.
Okay.
That's how we get these kids interactive. It's always hybrid. Either the self-study, they do the self-study, then they come to class and they actually have a live interaction with the mentor. And very often the mentor will not say, okay, I'm going to give you a lecture on PowerPoint, repeating the same thing. In fact, we told all our lecturers, do not use PowerPoint, you're not allowed to do that. you have to have an interactive session. So, for example, what works very well, we have, let's say, on our mobile phone, we have, let's say, a session on mutual funds, for example, right? Let's say they learn the theory of mutual funds. Then they come to class, and then the professor says, okay, fine, Anil, you pretend to be a mutual fund manager, a mutual fund sales agent, and here's Shahani. Why don't you try to sell a mutual fund to her? Shahani, you act as a client and be very skeptical. Have a conversation. So they're having a conversation and they're learning about mutual funds. Then I say, okay, look, Sunil, why don't you listen to what Anil had said? How could you have done it different? Now, Sunita, you sell and let this guy act as. So in a way, by interacting with the content, they're able to develop an understanding of it. Because see, don't forget, the older model of education was learning reams and reams of information, right?
Yeah.
Today, they don't want you to know reams of information. That's why they're in from Google.
Yes,
right?
it's democratized.
However, knowing the right information and applying it in the context of where you are is where the skill set is.
Yes.
And that is where experiential learning comes in.
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen multiple organizations that we work with as well.
Right.
This is the exact problem statement that they try to solve for. They're
Right.
like, I don't need the guy to know the details of the product.
Right.
I just want him to know how to talk to the client and get the point of view across.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, we go to see that most, even in the corporate training space, I think most corporate training is not saying, okay, here's a bunch of things you have to mug. It's really more developing the leadership, developing the personality, and you tend to have good facilitators because they treat the students, the corporate executives as human beings, as adults who can interact. Versus classic education in colleges, more like, okay, you guys are kids, we know everything, we will tell you everything.
We will tell you what to do.
So,
okay. Something triggered in my mind when you said facilitators as well.
Yeah.
Is you obviously need a different bunch of educators
Yeah.
to run such institutions
Correct.
and to interact with such students
Absolutely right.
and actually get outcomes for these students, right?
Right.
So what have been your learnings on that front? What kind of people do you look to hire? What kind of people have you grown within your organization?
Exactly, you've exactly as you mentioned. The thing is that we do not use academic faculty because the thing is that when they go through their classes,
Too much to unlearn.
Too much to unlearn. And see, the thing is that they have a model that's worked very well for them. Now that
Right.
model is dying, not tomorrow, but it is dying.
It is dying,
So therefore, we actually are taking corporate trainers. We're taking people from industry, and look at this way, right? I don't know if you ever taught a class, but the thing is, I mean, you'd love to teach a class without any payment, right? Because you enjoy the interaction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I'm assuming your classes are not boring PPTs. There's really more having a chat with the student, right?
Yeah.
That's always it. So we get people from industry. They love to interact with the students. In fact, they don't even charge anything or much, right? But the fact interacting with younger people, talking from experience, encouraging them to talk is something that we look for. So really someone who's empathetic and a good communicator and has some industry knowledge. Because don't forget, that person with some industry knowledge can learn that stuff in advance before they come to talk to class.
Yeah.
The academic faculty is more like, okay, I have to go through this curriculum, okay, I have to assess you with an exam, and that's all, that's a machine. So, in fact, we did very badly the first couple of years because we were using academics. We've got corporates now.
Sort of moved out of that. Okay,
Fully.
got it. So that, given some of our exposure in the US businesses as well,
Yeah.
what we've seen in the education space in the US is that there is a very mature ecosystem around career schools.
Right.
Basically schools which teach you plumbing and beauty courses,
Absolutely right.
etc., and all
Yeah,
of that, right?
right.
Do you see this as being something that can be a business in India as well? Do you see this coming up in India in the near future?
So interestingly, I actually was working with the state government on this like some years ago, right?
Okay.
And in fact, I was with the CII Skilling Council. And see, the thing is that, let's put it this way, right? The two countries where vocational education is doing very, very well are Germany and Australia.
Okay.
Germany, Switzerland as well. Why is that? Because the government mandates that you have to be qualified to work as a plumber or a truck driver
correct.
or things like that, right?
Yes.
Now the thing is that because someone said, look, I think that there's good money being a plumber, I will have to qualify myself in a trade school to get that certification, otherwise I don't have a job, right?
Right.
Every other country in the world, that requirement is not there. So like in India today, so for example, like say a lot of NGOs say, hey, okay, let's actually roll out plumbing or vocational
Right.
training, like that. The problem is the kid says, hey, if I want to be a plumber, why the heck should I sit and get a certification? I'd rather apprentice myself to a senior plumber, right? Learn and earn at the same time, because if I'm just getting a certification, I'm not earning, I'm just sitting and stuff,
yeah,
right? I mean, I'm not paying, but I'm not getting money.
Yeah.
But more importantly, if I get a piece of paper saying I'm a certified plumber, nobody's going to pay me more money per hour than the other guy, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, there's no ecosystem
Incentive, yeah.
that forces that, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that really works is that when you look at trades, let's say the chartered accountancy, CAs, CFAs, that's a qualification that's important. Project management is important to some extent. Programming definitely.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's no need for certification.
Nursing is the only thing that comes to mind, I think, which has a certification there.
Even then, but the funny thing is that when you look at, let's say, the guys who are actually doing very well on online skilling, most of them are basically selling programming courses.
Right.
Yes,
that's
because
true.
certification.
That is true.
Nobody is selling really much in, okay, let's be a great salesperson because certification I mean nothing. Right? So you need an ecosystem that
got it. So,
forces that.
But do you think that with the advent of companies like Urban Clap, for example, which is actually now rating people and having these different service providers on an application, on an app, and providing you those services,
right?
Do you think growth of such organizations at some point in the future might lead to certain of these benchmarks you're talking about?
But see, don't forget, the thing is that what happened is that, okay, again, I don't know Urban Clap people, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
but the thing is, at the end of the day, as they build their network, right, they say, okay, fine, do you look like you're breathing and you look like you can cut hair, right?
Okay.
Do you have some proof that says that, right? The person said, chalo, I'm coming on as a hairstylist, I'll come home.
Right.
Now, obviously, as the hairstylist comes in and their interaction with the clients, their rating builds up, right?
Yes.
It's like, let's say, Uber drivers, thing like that. So, but the problem is that Urban Clap is not asking for certification.
To be on
it doesn't exist, right?
Sure.
Because you can't scale your business that way.
Sure.
So, in a way, it's like, let's say, a two-sided market, like, let's say, even Amazon, for example, or let's say Airbnb. Basically, the rating comes on how you behave, not on the certification that you bring to the table. And as you know, the thing is that even when you go for a job interview, right, and the candidate has piles of these certifications and say, sir, here's my file. You say, oh, sounds good, but now tell me about yourself. Show me proof that you've done very well. You know,
yes.
people don't trust a piece of paper, unfortunately.
Yeah. There is the unwritten proof that is required that you've done what you said you're doing.
Correct. That's true.
Got it. Interesting. And so, if you had to then look at redesigning courses for the future, right? How would you look at it? So, because obviously you've obviously made a few changes across the last few years as well. COVID must have been one big time.
Yeah,
you had to really look at a lot of change. Now the coming AI revolution is something I think will also drive a lot of change in designing courses.
It's constant change.
So what have you learned across these two instances, and what are you doing right now to design courses for the new?
So again, it's not. The thing is, that it's like Kaizen, right? It's continuous improvement, right? So for example, it's not that suddenly AI came out and said, okay, now let's start making courses new. Every year there's something new. So frankly, I do have a good academic research team that actually constantly is interacting with the industry.
Okay.
As new products and services start coming through, we start integrating the course. So for example, let's say derivatives trading, right? I mean, something that we didn't have enough programs, let's say 2-3 years ago. Now we have it because now it's become quite popular. So you have to keep on getting the latest knowledge that way.
Right.
However, the core of developing critical thinking, communications, and collaboration and proactiveness, that will never change.
That will never change.
The requirement of human beings not change for thousands of years. That won't change. So what we're doing basically is that we're improving the amount of knowledge, right? The knowledge improve and changes in terms of what's latest. The hard skills also added. Like for example, now AI tools are important. Wasn't important 5 years ago, but those are still hard skills, right? The soft skills are still the core. So therefore, our interaction, our experiential learning still develops the softer skills. The tools that we ask them to use may be different.
Okay.
So that's it, but it's a constant.
Okay. And in terms of a slightly more long-term view of India as an economy, if you look at it, right, we are a largely services-driven economy.
Correct.
Which will continue to be a majority part of our GDP. But manufacturing and other sectors are also catching up. For example, defense, manufacturing, it's all catching up very fast.
Sure.
Do you see yourself pouring into providing workforces for those sectors as well? Are you already doing something there? What do you see happening for the next 25-30 years?
So interestingly, we've actually not from the more from the non-profit side, right? We've actually been asked by a couple of funders to set up jobs for green jobs, right? Because climate funding is quite huge.
Yes.
So therefore, there's a demand for setting up these electric vehicle maintenance guys or solar cell panel technicians. So we're exploring that, but it's something that's a little out of our existing thing. But I don't see any reason why it can't happen. But it's okay. Let's be clear. Also, the thing is that the very fact we're saying ordinary people, extraordinary careers. Where the caveat is to say that, okay, can the person get into lower middle class, not upper middle class, with the job opportunity, right? So right now, white collar jobs are giving you that, right?
Right.
When you're looking at an EV technician, I mean, right now they are getting some paid, but not as well paid. So we have to take a call: is that do we want to go down that route? And sometimes success in business is knowing what to say no to. Right?
Yes,
so
of course.
Can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're still more focused on white collar jobs and higher paying jobs, but hence a GCC opportunity.
Trend. Okay.
Because that requires a lot of technical commercials people. So in fact, we're now, I've launched an MBA in IT, which actually takes engineers and gives them an MBA, which is like most MBAs tend to be marketing, finance, and HR, right? The standard ones, right?
Yeah.
A couple of companies are doing MBA in IT, but we've actually gone double down on MBA in ITs to get technical commercial people for the GCC market, especially. And we're working with NASCOM and other people for getting that skill set.
Okay, that's very cool. And do you see a lot of demand for this in the tier 2, tier 3 towns as well? Or
Yeah, because you go with
across the board.
Yeah, you go where the jobs are, right? The thing is that if GCs are going to be, in fact, GCs are expected to be the fastest growing industry in India. So why not? I mean, people want to, and they're good, and they're good companies there. You know.
Got it. So, in terms of, we've spoken about what kind of courses you do. What is it that you're teaching to the organization, to the students?
Yeah.
We've spoken about how you're getting the industry inputs and what the industry needs in there to push up the employability of these students, right? Now, all of this also requires trackability within the organization. So, for example, a student might sign up with you for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year course.
Right.
What signals do you look for that a student is doing well or a program is doing well vis-a-vis that it's not doing too well?
Okay. So, let's make a distinction between the program and the student.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, obviously, starting with the program is really a function of saying that because we're constantly tracking the outcomes of the program, because unfortunately or fortunately, the proof of the pudding is really the sort of jobs these kids are getting, sort of salaries they're getting, and more importantly, once they've worked for a few months, what sort of feedback are the HR people giving us? Now, the thing is that that gives, and of course, don't forget, we constantly have inputs from the HR people, so that helps us refine the program. But the thing is that when you look at the students' performance, let's use a bell curve, right? So don't forget, because we're assessing the students on their agile skills and knowledge, the ask benchmarks as they go along, we actually can track that, okay, is the student performing well? For example, if he constantly shows up late to class, his professionalism score goes down. Or let's say, for example, if he doesn't, let's say if his public, not public speeches, like his presentations in the class, he doesn't have great, let's say, way of speaking in Skype.
Okay.
His communication skills score goes down. So in a way, we've told the students that, look, we will share your ask benchmarks with the end customer, the client, right, who's actually going to hire you. That means that if you go to a company and say, sir, I'll be the best worker for you, I'll work very hard, and the recruiter will say, hey, no, but you only scored 3 out of 10 on professionalism. I know you're not a professional guy. So therefore, suddenly you've aligned the client, the recruiter, the student, onto a platform, onto a system that everybody understands, right? So it's a bit like with Amazon, right? The thing is, you trust a vendor on Amazon because of the ratings and reviews, right?
Yeah.
You don't know who the heck they are, but because their ratings are higher, you'll trust them. Same logic is that if their ask benchmarks are scoring high, therefore they're more likely to get a job. However, I will not send a kid with low ask benchmark scores to a top end recruiter. So anyway, the pre-filtration happens anyway. So the student knows that if they want to get the job in the MNC, they have to score high in the ask benchmarks. If they don't, they can't blame us and say, hey, why you gave me a job in the corporate bank? I say, look, because that's what's expected. So in a way, it goes back to the idea of saying that constant measurement, I mean, not intrusive every day, but the student knows what they're expected to do. They know how they're being measured, and they know that their measure will affect their career outcomes. It gets them on track. And of course, there are some students who just, for whatever reason, may not be able to make it to that level. So we don't really take them to the high-end recruiters. So from the recruiter's point of view, most recruiters, their biggest problem is reducing risk. Right? So the thing is, they say, look, I'm going to hire 200 people. I just want to make sure that the people who hire, I don't want some creative mavericks. I want the guys who come in and get the job done with least hassle, right? So that's the thing. So what we are giving them is reduced risk in hiring. Because the right person is the right job. So now, if there's someone who's highly egotistical, brilliant guy, and as a student was a high salary, I'm not going to send him to like this cooperative bank. Conversely, I'm not going to guy who's done pretty corporate, who doesn't know how to speak well. I will not send him to like JP Morgan, right? So, cost of a course is essentially.
Got it. But in terms of tracking the success of the course, you said that the only real outcome that you can track is how much employability did you see and what feedback you got.
Correct.
So there's a lag always in that.
Of course.
And that lag is something that you have to build into your curriculum.
Like with anything. I mean, I'm sure even with you guys, the thing is that ultimately your changes happen because of customer feedback.
Yes.
But it's not like you can assume what the customers want. So
yes.
As long as they're responsive, that's fine.
Okay. Got it. Cool. And in terms of policy in India today,
Yeah.
right? You mentioned you're working with a few state governments, you work with CII, etc., to look at certain courses, etc.
Yeah.
What is the government doing today to help organizations such as you and also to help the segment of population that you're looking at?
Okay, good. So I think, frankly, NEP 2020 was, a breath of fresh air to some extent, and those actually being implemented in 2022. But one thing we have to also understand is that NEP 2020 education is a state subject, right?
Right.
So NEP is just guidelines.
It's guidelines for the central government.
Right.
Yeah.
And each state has the
option.
ability to implement or not implement as they go along. But don't forget is that you then have the states, then you have the regulators like UGC, AICT, everyone's got their own laws. I mean, they're trying to get a higher education regulator to stabilize that, but that's not happened yet. But obviously, is that the way NEP is being implemented, let's say in a Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, may be very different from being implemented in a rural place in Jharkhand, right? So the enabling environment is there, but the implementation has to happen on the ground.
Right.
As I mentioned, the thing is that for the trade school model, we said, unfortunately, the government doesn't mandate, let's say, qualifications and certifications, which I think also may be difficult to do in India because they say, look, all this time we've been working as a plumber, now you want me to pay money for certification, so not going to happen. So I think if the government is willing to at least not clamp down all the time on educational entrepreneurs, because see, don't forget, is that the reason why, and again, not to point fingers at specific institutions, but very often you have the classic model of, hey, here's a politician, he's got some land, he gets some, and then he finds ways to take capitation fees under the table.
Right.
Because he's not allowed to officially take a profit, his fees are low, and by default, he has to pay 6-pay commission to his teacher.
Wages, yeah.
So, from following all the rules, he can't really make a sustainable model, right?
Okay.
So, therefore, say, look, if you open up and say, look, we are happy for you to actually charge whatever fees, make a reasonable profit, but as long as you don't fleece the students, you're fine. And also allow private investment to come in to core education, right? So, for example, you may have read, I also was part of India's first private equity fund that invests in education, right? And for that, I actually understood what are the models out there. So, we defined education as core education, parallel education, and ancillary. So, core education was colleges, schools, anything that gives you a degree of formal education.
Right.
Parallel would have been like, let's say, the training institution like an NITs or AppTech. That's you can private company, you can train coaching classes.
Right.
Ancillary would be the services like, let's say, CRM providers or let's say mobile apps, LMS, things like that.
Right.
Now, in the parallel education and in the ancillary education, you can be a for-profit company, make your money, right?
Right.
But the real change in education happens in core education, right?
Yes.
Which is the most regulated.
Right.
So if you allow private investment to come into core education, that means the investor can put in, let's say, a few crores and expect to get a decent return on capital. That's fine, because then there'll be a huge explosion of colleges and schools who say, look, yes, we're happy to attract investment and grow to help this country.
Got it.
And some countries have started allowing that, but India still has to allow that.
But I see. Okay. There is a very healthy private education system in India today, right? I think about 70% or 70-odd% of the colleges in India in higher education are private sector.
Okay, let's put this way, right?
Yeah.
So yes, there are private colleges, but look at this way, right? So the thing is that in a private college, yes, you can be an MBA institution, right? Or you can be, let's say, certain professional courses.
Right.
But that doesn't hit the core BCom, BA core market. The kids from the tier 2, tier 3 cities may not necessarily have the money to pay for those
for the postgraduate
courses, right? Number one. Number two, don't forget, is that you still have to be a charitable trust to run the college, right?
Right.
So therefore, you say, okay, I'm a trustee, right? I have set this private college, right? Let's say, okay, I'm dedicating a lot of my life to build it up, but I can't take out any money. Now, what do? I set up all these service companies and find ways around the thing. So look at this, right? There are a lot of colleges, a lot of institutions you probably know who are very, very profitable from an unknown point of view, but none of them list.
None of them list, yes.
But then you're not allowing actually the private industry to get involved, right?
You're not allowing entrepreneurship to thrive in the sector. Basically.
Correct, yeah.
But against this context, I read recently also that India is going to allow a lot of these foreign institutions to set up shop in India.
Yep,
right?
Good luck.
A lot of the foreign... Okay, I think I got your point of view there, but just double clicking on that.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen there? I know this is targeting a very different segment of the country, but is this pointing to maybe certain norms which might come up which help the sector as well?
Okay, so let me put this way, and the way to look at it it would be to see what's happened with British and American institutions that have gone to other countries, like in UAE, Malaysia.
Yeah.
They've been welcoming them with open arms, right?
Yes.
Now, understand the economic model of universities, right? Harvard will never open up their MBA in India. They'll do executive education. Why? Because Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, all these guys are basically highly regarded because they reject 90% of the people who apply.
Right.
Exclusive, right?
Yes.
So therefore, their revenue does not come from student fees. It comes from endowments and other revenue sources. Right?
Some of the largest world's endowments are with these organizations.
Correct. So they really don't need a lot of student fees.
Right.
Now the mid-tier guys, the Middlesex universities, they say, look, we don't have the endowments. We need to find ways to earn more revenue, right? So therefore, we have an ability to open up new campuses in other countries because we want to get the student revenue, right?
Right.
So for that means they're not a selective institution.
Right.
Now what happens is that if I'm a student who goes to, let's say, a Middlesex university, okay, let's say I've got some university, Middlesex University that open up here in Bombay, right? And I've got that, and I've got, let's say, another well-known Indian college like this, Symbiosis, whatever. I get my MBA from Middlesex, I get my MBA from Symbiosis, right? I go to a company and I say, okay, fine, boss, give me a double salary because I've spent money on Middlesex. The recruiter say, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, I'm not going to pay you extra because you went to some UK university, right?
Right.
Especially in India, right? Because you're still a fresher. Right. So the thing is, what happened is that you pay extra for that branding, but what happened is that you may not necessarily get you won't get the foreign experience. Number one, number two, you may not get all the foreign professors coming down. Most of the time, these guys will set up the institution. They'll have a lot of the same Indian professors, and you won't get the bump in salary that you expect.
So having spent more for your education,
right? Yeah. So you've paid more for the brand, but doesn't mean anything.
It's not translated
in the local market, right? So I mean, see, doesn't mean that all the foreign institutions will not do well. They'll be there, but it's not like going to change the industry. Not like everyone can say, okay, let's drop going to Indian institutions, start going to the institutions, right? See, also,
so this is not signaling. I think where I was coming to is this is not signaling any change from the government side in terms of becoming or allowing the segment to become a little more entrepreneurial. This is not indicating that.
No, because you don't forget there's still a lot of regulation on that. No, the thing is that so UGC still has its control on these guys, so still have to do a lot of other stuff. Now I don't know how strongly UGC is going to tell them, okay, this is what your fee should be, this is what you pay your teachers, but it's still good. But I do know for a fact, I don't know if they've changed that model of saying that whatever income you earn in India, you can remit or not remit. It's still. I'm sure that was a big deal breaker for these universities earlier.
Okay.
I don't know if they've allowed that now.
I'm sure you've observed some of the other countries outside of India who have probably who also have had very similar problems like India, right? Large populations,
exactly.
Not a very big middle class, a larger lower middle class,
right.
Then a upper middle class. Do you have any examples of countries who've done well, sorted out this problem? Maybe UAE, maybe something in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, in fact, funnily, of all the countries, Malaysia has actually done very, very well in international education. In fact, where we were just dithering over having a few foreign universities, I'm talking about years ago, these guys already have around, I think, 14 or 15 foreign universities operating very well in Malaysia.
Wow,
right?
that's
I'll even tell you what worked. And this talks about the government's mindset, right? So, I don't know if you know this or not. If you get a degree from a foreign university and you come back to India, it's not automatically recognized.
Yes, I'm aware. Yes.
So you have to go to some place called AIU or Associate Indian University to validate that. So theoretically, I can get a Bombay University degree and say, hey, I'm recognized in India, but you come back with your Harvard MBA, I have to get AIU to give an official stamp, right?
Yes.
Especially if you want to do a PhD in India, right? Now, that's fine. Because there's a concept called credit recognition, qualification recognition. Yes. So, like in Europe, there's something called the Bologna Accord. That means that says that if you get part of a degree from Italy and then you shift your student to, let's say, France, you will get course credit and that's recognized across the board, right? Now, in India, that doesn't work. The things, for example, like if you let's say get your degree from India, right? It may not be recognized internationally, and also there's no recognition across the board.
Right.
Malaysia started early and said, look, we are going to get all our degrees recognized across the world. So all Malaysian degrees are recognized across countries for jobs and for things like that.
Wow.
Because they have a single regulator.
Right.
That means that if you choose to, there were a lot of twinning programs, if you remember, in India, where you said that, look, I will start doing the first 2 years in a college here,
right,
and then the final 2 years in a college abroad, right?
Correct. Yes.
That's still not recognized by AIU. That means if you're twinning, it doesn't work.
Okay.
In Malaysia, that does work. Okay. Other hybrid models of, let's say, saying that, okay, look, I can do it partly online, partly offline, different ways of doing education work. when foreign universities came down to Malaysia, they said, look, yes, we'll welcome you with open arms, we'll give you subsidized electricity and land, we will also allow you to take your money out of the country. So Malaysia because of that, because Malaysia knew that their own education industry was way behind, but because they allowed a lot of private entrepreneurs and foreign universities to come in, and they also had cost recognition and credit recognition across different countries, they've done very, very well. So like the Malaysian education system today, before I forget, how many foreign students actually come to India to study in India? Malaysia is actually a hub of foreign education in the region. That means students from Vietnam, from Thailand, from other parts of South Asia come to Malaysia to study. And then go back.
Okay.
Because of this internationalization. Right? Now UAE is trying to do the same thing and getting there. But my point being, it just requires a bit of government understanding that, look, education has to be more international. You have to do cost recognition. You have to understand that a credit earned partly here can be utilized part there.
Yeah.
And things like with the private enterprise to come in. So Malaysia is already there. UAE is already there. So other countries have done it very well. So I don't see any reason.
So there's a model that we can look at.
Models already exist, yeah.
Right. So there's two elements to this, right? One is, of course, on the academic side.
Yeah.
Getting the courses recognized and all of that, which of course is will happen if you allow institutions to get set up in the first place. But India seems to have a problem there, right? If you look at the explosion in startups in India over the last 10-15 years, right? We've touched all sectors. Space, most recently.
Right.
We've touched manufacturing.
Correct.
We've touched digital native services.
Right.
We've touched a lot of things.
Correct.
But in education, I have not heard of too many startups coming in core education.
Right.
What we've seen is EdTech.
Right.
Which promised to revolutionize the world. They got significant tailwind because of COVID.
Correct.
And then, of course, they have had their own challenges.
Absolutely right.
So what can the government do to sort of ignite entrepreneurship in the education space in India today?
Okay.
Core education.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the thing is that if the government removes the requirement of only a private trust setting up a college or school, that itself will go a long way. Number one. Number two, the government said, look, let the market decide the fees and what you pay the teacher. So the government said, look, you can be a private company, you set up your own infrastructure, you charge what fees you want. If students don't find the fees too high, they won't come to you. Pay your teachers well, or pay them. If the teachers don't provide good quality education, students won't come to you. So if you look at, let's say, more private colleges or private schools can come out with private investors, then by default you'll have a lot more education choice.
Got it.
So the thing is, because then students will have that many more colleges, that many more schools, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 cities.
But I think the core of this, which we were discussing but didn't come up right now, is the fact that you have to allow these institutions to make a profit.
Exactly. That's right.
Now, a definition of reasonable profit, and I think the fear of what might happen is probably what is holding the government back.
That is true. But the thing is that, look at this way, right? The thing is the government has actually deregulated most other sectors. I mean, the thing is that the banking financial services sector, right? I mean, how was the stock market like in like 1980s, 1990s? Banking sector. Today, the number of private banks, private financial institutions have exploded. It doesn't mean that everyone's being scammed. In fact, there's a lot more choice available. Today, you can choose from insurance providers. You're getting better rates than if you're depending only on LIC or GIC, right?
Correct.
So the thing is that if you deregulate a sector, by default, there will be enough good quality players coming in. And more importantly, the consumer will have a lot more choice. Your problem, like I said, is not the main cities of Bombay, Delhi and Bangalore where there's enough choice. Problem is the small town, like the small areas in Jharkhand or small areas in Orissa, where there are students who want to pay and want to get a good education, but because there's limitation of what can be invested in, they don't have good quality colleges or quality institutions.
I think healthcare is another example where reasonably good stuff has been done around by the private sector.
Correct.
And in fact, I was surprised to see that a majority of our large brands today in the country are actually owned by private equity players.
Absolutely right.
Which means it's a good business to be in, right?
It is.
So this is the flip side of what can happen. This is what we were talking about.
Absolutely right.
So what do you think the government can do to sort of to deregulate but protect the interests of the end consumer? Right? So it's a tricky path to walk for anybody.
Right.
But having been in the space, you might have a point of view.
No, very simple. I mean, look at the financial markets today. The thing is that you have SEBI, you have so many regulators, you have IRDA for insurance industry. So you allow people to come and make profit and put private investment, but you have just regulators to make sure that nobody's being scammed. See, charging high fees, if people are willing to pay you for it, it's fine, right? It's fine. However, limiting your ability to charge fees and by default then have low quality teachers, that is not a good thing. So in healthcare space, as you mentioned, the thing is that there are hospitals which are charging a lot of money. However, there also are a bunch of clinics who are not charging much money and doing good quality work. However, because you have the Apollos and who are doing great in terms of quality healthcare, India has now become a hub for medical tourism.
Medical tourism, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you've allowed private players, right?
Yes.
If you did not allow private players, our healthcare system would not be as great. We would actually not be able to come up with great healthcare outcomes. Today, you don't always have to go to America or Europe to actually get treated. You can get great treatment and cancer and all in India.
Correct.
So, now the same in education.
In fact, a lot of times you have people coming from these countries to India for their treatment.
Exactly, that's true, because that's exactly the point. The funny thing is that in spite of private enterprise coming to healthcare, our healthcare costs are still low compared to most other countries.
Most of the developed countries, yeah. So I think education is a bit stuck like tourism, I feel, in India, right? We have a lot in India, but we don't know how to market it to the world. I feel education is in a similar space. We have a lot to offer, but we still don't know how to go about doing it probably. Okay. So if I had to put you in a spot and say, what is the one thing that the government can do? One incentive program or one initiative or one policy that the government can launch, which kickstarts this space. What would you put your finger on?
Very simple. Just in the UGC Act, just add one line: private companies are allowed to set up universities and colleges. I mean, that's it. That's it. It doesn't cost the government anything, right? Easiest thing to do.
Easiest thing to do. Okay, got it. Okay, let's change track a little bit on understanding what makes you tick. What makes your organization tick? How is it that you're running your organization today, right? Like we discussed, you're addressing a very different segment of the country today, which means you deal with a lot of different people.
Right.
And given your background, your family, your educational history, might not be the easiest for you to relate. Okay.
Yeah.
Given that scenario, how do you look at leadership and mentorship?
Okay.
Fundamental concepts might say the same, I understand, but application and practice are two very different things.
Right, that's true.
So how do you go about...
Well, I mean, okay, if I'm talking about within my organization itself, I mean, the thing is that it's a classic thing with most founders. Like, in fact, a classic example with you, right? The thing is, the founders of your organization, they knew that they could build a company to a certain level, and they got professional help, well-quality people to come and run the organization, right? So at the end of the day, as a founder, as long as I hire the best people and let them do what they do best, you know, it's a classic. Steve Jobs said the same thing, right? The thing is that it'd be stupid for us to hire the best people and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
You just give them the targets and go out and do it, right? As long as you attract them. So that's it. And see, my job and most great founders will do the same thing and say, look, we just give them targets, let them do it their own way, but we will coach them, we will help them, we will support them to achieve what we need for the company. But that's it, because see, people want a sense of autonomy, right? Nobody wants to be under a micromanager. That's the worst thing. Is that nobody likes a Lala company culture. So you give a great culture, let them feel good about themselves, let them feel good that they've achieved something. You'll attract the right talent, and works very well.
Right. So I read somewhere, it's a very interesting quote that a lot of good quotes, culture eats strategy, etc., all of that, right? But a very different one that I saw was that process is what builds culture.
Right.
Okay. It's not motivational speeches. It's not what you say, but it's about what you do, how you do day after day. Right?
Correct.
So what's your view on that? I mean, how have you gone about, because saying building a great culture is a very easy thing to say.
Sounds good, right?
It's extremely difficult to put in practice.
Absolutely right.
And as a company, personally as LeadSquared, we've grown from, I think, a 150 member team about 5 years ago to an 800, 900 member team.
Correct.
So that explosion comes with its own challenges.
Absolutely
right. I'm sure you've looked at some of these problems. So how do you think about culture?
Interesting. So it's actually interesting. So, we keep on saying Indians are the most indisciplined, we never follow rules and things like that. But we noticed that in all the cities, people are wearing seatbelts. Something which is unimaginable, let's say 15, 20 years ago, right? Because all the state governments did was say, look, if you're not wearing a seatbelt, we'll fine you, right? That's it. All the speeches, all the safety gyan, nobody cares about.
Yes.
If you're driving a car and you're not wearing a seatbelt, we'll fine you. If you're driving drunk, we will fine you.
We will wear a helmet, we'll fine you.
We'll fine you. Yes. That's it. Simple, minor changes. So all we have to do basically in an organization is basically come up with a few simple rules and make sure they're enforced, right? And again, they're not like hardcore rules from the top down, but things like, okay, I'll give an example in my organization, right? So we're actually following what's called a scaling up procedure where every day we have something called a daily huddle call.
Okay.
That means that at 9:25, right, every day, not 9:30, 9:20, all the senior leaders of the company will log into a WhatsApp call and we will update on three things. What we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, are there any hurdles? And more importantly, we've got KPIs defined. So what I did yesterday, that is aligned with my KPI. and what KPI am I aligned with. What I'm going to do today was align my KPI. Every day, people have to update. They can't say, oh, yesterday nothing happened. Today, I just did. That puts pressure on people. Then every week, we have a weekly huddle. That means that all the senior leaders get together and the KPI sheets are up in public. And you say, okay, this week, how many admissions did you get? Was that your target? Why not? So, in a way, because they know that every week they're going to be under scrutiny and even every day, suddenly their behavior changes because they stop doing stuff that is not, let's say, not advancing them.
Aligned.
And because they have to then deliver. No? So that's it. So all the gyan, like I said, all the motivation is not important. Here's your KPIs. If you've not delivered, why? That's it.
Yeah, that's something else that I read somewhere as well, that consistency beats motivation.
Exactly, that's it.
So
it's a machine. So the funny thing is that, in fact, this is the best performing companies are the ones which are the most boring.
Right.
No drama, no politics, just deliver, sit down, boring, but get the work done.
Okay. So we spoke about something that worked for you.
Yeah.
Something that didn't work at all. You tried something in your organization and it turned out to be a disaster.
Well, again, I mean, I think it's probably the earlier years of organization. But again, like as a founder, it's interesting, right? Very often, the person who's the founder of the company and the person who's the best administrator of the company may not be the same person.
Fair enough.
Very often, right? I mean, it just happens, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a classic case that when you're the founder, right, you always have a lot of passion. You got a small team. Everyone's a bum
It's your baby.
Yeah. Baby, you have drinks with it. Literally, it's like that core group, right?
Yes.
But then you have to realize that, hey, sometimes you can't just depend on passion. Like, okay, my first 25, 30 employees, I knew everyone by first name, what their families were, blah, blah, blah. Minute I go to 100, 200, I don't know everyone here. I mean, like, I got people walking in my office and saying, hi, sir, I don't know if they're a student or I don't know that, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that means that you need to have a period of middle managers who then enforce the rules. I mean, like leadership and management sometimes is different. So, but then learning new skills. Now, to be honest, even today, I think my ability as an administrator is really not great compared to my ability to speak in public and give interviews, right?
Sure.
So, but the thing is that learning to let go, the founder mentality to say, hey, it's not Akhil Shahani's company, it is basically the Shahani Group and it's an organization that could be professional, right? That is where sometimes you have to be willing to let go that way. And in fact, just take another point, my elder daughter, she's 31 years old. She's been working with me for the last 3-4 years in the company. Before that, she was in investment banking.
Okay.
And then she started in the UK before that. However, I had to be very, very clear in my mind. I can't make it like a Lala company because just my daughter joined. That means she automatically gets a corner office and she's like, uninfected kid. So in fact, I told her, look, you please apply for a job through the normal route in the company, and if there's a job available, if your resume matches, right, we will actually then consider hiring you, but there'll be other applicants for the same job, right? And this is where it's fun because she applied when there was COVID going on, right? And part of COVID was that we couldn't, we had to work from home, and but the final round of the interview was you had to come face to face. One of the few days where you're allowed to come face to face. She said, no, I'm not feeling comfortable coming face to face. That time she was more very finicky.
Sure.
I said, okay, fair enough, no problem. So the person who came for the physical interview got the job. I said, look, you lost the job, reapply another 3 months. And she did. But then I think that really gave her a sense of professionalism. And she walked away from ground up. Now she's doing very, very well. But she now has done very well because of her hard work, not because she's a kid of the founder. It goes back to the whole idea about the cultural change, moving away from that family-run mindset to a professional mindset, right?
Got it.
And that, there's no defined pathways. Sometimes you have to make these decisions every day.
I think it's to each his own.
To each his own, yeah.
You have to find your own path towards.
There's some very well-known companies that we know which are still very, very tightly controlled by the family, and everyone is sycophant with the top guy, but.
No, majority, I think majority conglomerates in India which are even publicly listed, the family still owns a majority of the organization.
That is true.
It's very true of India across the board.
Absolutely true, but I think if the family understands the difference between ownership and management, that's a key thing. So for example, a lot of the European conglomerates, I mean, they're like the LGT, the Prince of Liechtenstein. I mean, the guy's like very 7th, 8th generation. A lot of the Mittelstands in Germany, right? So the thing is that you have founders who are on the board, family founders, but the 4th generation on the board, but they don't actually actively involved in running the company, right? Like the Waltons or Walmart, right?
My former organization Siemens is an example of that as
exactly
well.
Right.
Founder one Siemens was the founder 175 years ago. and the line still exists,
Right.
but there's nobody in the company.
Correct, but the thing is, because of that, Siemens has lasted for 150 years, right? The thing is, but if the founder said, only my kid will run the organization, the kid may not be as brilliant, right? So the thing is that very often organizations tend to die because the founder's kid doesn't have the hunger that the thing. So own the shareholding, get the revenue, have a family trust that gets cash flow coming in, but let managers run the company.
Yeah, and I think there's enough studies around there to prove that 3, 4, 5 generations is when stuff starts going haywire.
Right.
Cool. Okay, so in terms of your own organization's roadmap, right? What are you looking at over the next 10 years, 5 years, 3 years?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, the merit of education model, I think that's the main growth part. So the thing is that so far we are active in 3 states, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh.
Okay.
But we want to scale up pan-India, but also we are looking at stepping out of India. The Middle Eastern market is huge.
Okay.
Especially like you take a Dubai as a jumping off point to Saudi Arabia. So the problem, as I mentioned earlier about ordinary people, extraordinary careers, the same problems are there in a lot of the other younger countries. Like let's say in the Middle East, there are a lot of young people in Saudi Arabia who need to be educated to get the jobs, or let's say in UAE, Bahrain, North Africa, Southeast Asia. So we think this model works very well in partnership. So we look at ourselves as a pan-Asian organization. India is the base, but the Middle East and Southeast Asia would be there, and maybe North Africa to some extent would be where we expand.
But similar style of operations is what you're looking at.
Yeah, because see, the model is the same. The thing is that ultimately the skill sets of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, that's all needed across the world because the soft skills don't change. The hard skills may change and the knowledge may change, but in any case, we will be asset light. We'll have local partners, infrastructure providers, and we will just, it's like what Marriott did.
Right, got it. I think the whole asset light model is something that's very interesting in terms of setting up an education institution.
Right.
I really hope more people pick up this space as well.
Not too quickly, hopefully. We don't have much competition.
No, I think there's enough market. One thing I know about India is there's enough
market. I know.
There is enough market for everybody to survive. I think we have 400 million students or 300 million students who are coming up the space. There's enough.
No, and taking the full point, the thing is that unlike the tech industry, it's not like last man standing. You have to be the 1 or 2 top players. So actually, you can be very, very profitable, even if you have 0.05% of the market
share.
Enough students are there.
There's enough market. Part of the basic roti kapda makan education. If you're in that space, there's enough market in India. Enough market in India. Okay, cool. And any moonshot initiatives you're planning?
So, what I'm hoping, right, and I don't know if that it's something that that's a longer dream, is that if you look at solving the problem for employability at scale, right? The thing is that right now the Ask Benchmarks model that we have is something that we have within the group.
Okay.
Right. Now the thing is that imagine if that becomes a standard for companies to hire. So that means that a company may say before a person comes for a job at the entry level, they will actually ask them to get themselves tested and ask benchmarks. And if they're found wanting, they will actually tell the kid, okay, look, go back and get yourself trained to that level, right? Now, immediately imagine other colleges start adopting that, and we make it an open source standard. So, in a way, is that if people start changing the assessments for employability, they'll become more employable. Because right now, the only assessment model is exams and assignments, right? And assignments are now just going away because of AI, right? And exams, again, in any case, we know are out of date. So, if we change the assessment model and know how to develop students along that model, you will create a positive flywheel. Right? And by default, companies will start hiring based on an Ask Benchmark standard. And it's like saying that, how do I do it? Like, for example, like there are psychometric tests there, right? So people are start using disc profiling or things like that. But if you make it more universal, I think that's something that could really change the face of employability.
Got it. And this ties in with Ask Talent Services that you're setting up as well?
Yeah. So Ask Talent Services is actually my corporate facing division, right? So we say that, classic example, right? So we are training a lot of students to get them jobs in the companies. But companies are hiring people from outside, obviously, our group. So we went to them and say, look, we've got ready trained talent for you. However, you've hired talent from other locations which are not trained.
Right.
Now, you are spending piles of money to train them. Why don't you outsource the work to us? Because we already know how to do it.
Right.
And we have, the key thing about it is the ROI that you're getting from us because of our scale, our cost of training is much lower, number one. Number two, we already have the Ask Benchmarks and we have a lot of data to track how the employees are performing.
Right.
So that means that you can actually, one thing that a lot of companies do when they're training people is that they have no idea of the outcome of the training. So let's say if they're training hundreds entry-level salespeople, right? They're giving them training on, let's say, sales skills or let's say leadership, blah, blah, blah. But they have no idea which of the salespeople are taking it seriously, right? What we are saying is that we will actually assess them while they're being trained, and anyone who's not taking it seriously, we actually will be able to tell you. You're not taking it seriously. So suddenly that has become very exciting to companies. So it's a new initiative, and it also aligns with what we're doing, because the more we're able to serve the companies, the more they become friendly with us, and they say, okay, we actually want to start making you as our pipeline of talent acquisition. So it works very well.
It's a virtuous cycle that you're setting up there. Got it.
Positive flywheel.
And I think it's pretty good as well, because from what I learned from the industry is there's almost 30 to 40% attrition across the board.
Absolutely right.
At entry-level jobs today, which means training is always going to be a requirement, right?
Already there. And the good thing about Gen Z is that they can get very, very bored very easily. So
it's good for organizations like you
good
who are in the space of training.
No, I mean, again, problems from the Gen Z here. The thing is that the point is that you may join the best company in the world, but it's not a matter of earning, more a matter of fulfillment. Okay, I've done my challenges here, jobs are boring, other jobs are available, so I will jump. So there's a concept of the portfolio career, right? Nobody stays in the same company forever. So therefore, you will say, I'll start as a banker, then I may move into advertising, I may move into hospitality, because I want a new challenge every day. And there are that many more jobs available for talented people. So it's there.
Yeah, but I think organizations also should relook at what they do with such staff, because if you can move your employee within your own organization across different functions, right, and not be siloed that somebody who joins in HR or marketing has to stay there.
Correct.
You gain because that person has actually got context of the company for a year before they move to a different function.
So I think there are two ways of looking at it, right? The thing is, actually three ways of it. One is the organization which are just hidebound with old structures and they're losing talent anyway.
Right.
Number two is organizations say, okay, look, the kid is working with me. I know he's not going to be loyal, so I'm not loyal to him. So let me squeeze as much as I can.
Very transactional.
Very transactional. BSI industry, sorry, but that's what it is, right? So they say, okay, let's get the maximum value. It's like a call center, right? Let's spend on training them, get them productive, and we know they'll be poached or somewhere else within a couple of years. So let's just get that value. High pressure.
Right.
Third will be some of the knowledge companies. Like that's where you have, like let's say the Big Four or some of the large players who say, look, we believe the knowledge worker is important, and therefore we will give them. Consulting firms do this very well because they keep on giving them different projects to work on. They hire fewer people and they can grow in the company. But every company culture is different. So like when you have a high-paid knowledge worker and fewer employees, you will make more effort to develop them. Correct. Versus, let's say, if you have a large-scale, let's say, commercial bank, you don't have the luxury of
moving people around. You need to keep the engines running.
It is what it is.
Okay, cool. Let's just a few questions on the lighter side now. 4 generations of education in your household.
Right.
What's a dinner table conversation like?
Well, it's not like we are very serious educationists. We're talking about we're like any crazy family.
Okay.
Well, my daughters are much older now. The elder one is married and out of the the family, and younger. But again, stupid things, gossip, and just normal. How's your day? And like any other family. When we're not strange people.
Got it. Okay. One course or subject or teacher that you still recollect?
Interesting. So this is actually interesting. So I was 5th standard in school, right? And this actually talks about the value of a great teacher. So I used to hate maths when I was a kid, right? I don't have any now. But the thing is that in the 5th standard, there was this teacher who actually made it fun to learn maths. She said, okay, like why don't you, instead of actually using a pencil in those days, take different colored felt pens.
Okay.
And you write numbers with different colors, and it was like a game. She made it like a game to actually say, like, let's solve for X, but it's like finding an animal that you're hunting for. She made it fun. So even though maths itself was boring, she made an effort to make maths fun for us. In fact, because of that, I became an engineer and then moved on. But again, you don't get teachers like that very easily, and these are people who love it.
Education is certainly one space, and especially teachers, where they have a butterfly effect which they're not even aware of, right?
Exactly, that's true. And it's funny. The thing is that, and again, especially what I found really not enlightening, but let's say what really makes my day worth it is sometimes, like, for example, like especially from the Sage Foundation, we have these low-income kids. I've had a kid who his father was a classic chaiwala, right? Wow. Literally, and then he studied with us 3 years ago. He became a senior manager in ICICI Bank, and he came back to hire our kids. And he said, "Sir, you're the one who actually helped us grow." So stuff like that.
That sort of validation is just so heartwarming, right?
Exactly, that's true. And I never met the kid while he was studying with us, but he came back and said, "Sir, you may not remember me, but this is what my life story was." So Stuff like that.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So we have a maths teacher to thank somewhere in the back.
Well, let's see.
Got it. If you could add one practical course, not theoretical, one practical course to all students today, what would that be?
The most practical course, which I also even learned, was called rhetoric. Rhetoric, Kellogg.
Okay.
Rhetoric, basically the ability to convince someone else, right? Rhetoric means basically how to speak, how to do that, right? Because ultimately, most people still look at you from the surface, right? So you may have people who don't look good at all, don't dress well, but when they open their mouths, magic appears, right? So if you're able to master rhetoric, actually understand the other person's point of view, actually understand how to convince them from your point of view, it's one of the most useful skills you can develop. So rhetoric, public speaking,
got it.
Everyone.
Just a slight digression on this.
Yeah.
In terms of languages in India, you have a plethora of languages in India, right? And there might be someone who's very good at the skill you just spoke about, rhetoric, in their native tongue.
Sure.
But maybe there's not a market for him. How much of that are you seeing actually happen, and how much of the market are you seeing opening for people who are non-English?
No, so I'm actually a big believer in vernacular languages, right?
Okay.
Because the thing is, for example, like let's say in Gujarat, right? A lot of the kids that we're training for the financial services sector, they say, look, the companies saying, look, most of our clients' first language is Gujarati. I don't want some high funder, convent educated kid talking down to them, right?
Yeah.
I actually want someone who can sell very well in Gujarati to talk to them.
Right.
So, and see, look at this thing. So, because we have that colonial mindset, how many people in China speak English? How many people in Malaysia speak English? Or so the thing is, you can actually do very, very well in your environment speaking your local language. And sometimes speaking well in your local language in Tamil or thing, you do much better. I mean, English is a second language.
Right.
But if you think and speak in your mother tongue, especially if you're in an environment where you're building up relationships with people.
Yeah. And I think India needs to embrace that a lot more.
We should, I mean, like, it should be depoliticized and just say, look, your mother tongue actually is very, very useful.
It's very relevant. Yeah, it's very relevant. Yeah. In terms of what you do with your free time, any book, any podcasts, any shows that you'd recommend for students to watch today, which can sort of get juices flowing?
Besides the LeadSquared podcast?
Besides that.
Okay. No, so I'm actually this thing. So I read The Economist a lot, right? And Economist, right? So Economist has got a great podcast, a bunch of podcasts. So I'm constantly listening to that.
Okay.
There is also a guy called William Dalrymple who he writes historian, right? He's actually written a lot of books on Indian history. So he actually has a great podcast called Empire. Because the thing is, very often when we look at Indian history, we remember what we learned in school, Battle of Panipat, dates, boring. He actually makes it very interesting. You actually understand how enlightening, how rich India's culture is. And you tend to, again, go back, stepping out of the colonial mindset and say, look, really understand what India is all about. So I do that. Then, of course, I mean, The Ken and a few other great magazines. I listen to their podcasts. I don't have a fixed
You don't have a fixed...
I would say that any kid who wants to learn stuff, they have a lot of podcasts available on Spotify. So just pick one that you like that will teach you something and just learn it. I mean, there's no right or wrong.
Because I think even searching for the right podcast to listen to is a skill, right?
Yeah.
So you probably just go to subjects that interest you and figure out something.
Yeah, that's it. And there are plenty of podcasts and all over the place. Yeah. And the thing is that it's not that you all see. The problem is that very often kids tend to get too caught up on what's most exciting, most fun. So you have like, especially now there's AI slop coming out, as you know, right? So the thing is that it's stuff that it grabs your attention, but a lot of podcasts that teach you something tend to be slightly more boring. But you have to make the effort to listen and hear them properly. So it's a skill that you have to develop.
And when you're not listening to something or when you're not trying to learn something, what do you like to read or look at?
Well, I mean, actually, my favorite times in the week is Sunday morning. I sit in Starbucks and I got good 3 hours of my me time reading a book. So I got my iPad or my Kindle. I mean, it's I'm reading something else. So I do a lot of non-fiction reading, but non-business. Non-fiction. So I'm quite a voracious reader. So very often I'm reading 3 or 4 books simultaneously in the month. I mean, no social life. So, but the thing I think is like some books like as far as there's Physics of the Impossible by Machu Picchu, talks about particle physics and stuff like a string theory in the universe. The other side is a book called Peak Human, which there's a guy who talks about the golden ages of how he compares how ancient Greece was to the Dutch Republic, how does it compare to America, how all civilizations fall during the same. They spend too much on their military, like what's happening. Let's see what's happening. They try to remove immigration. Very similar, and tend to get a larger picture. My point being is that if you're just interested, just read stuff here. That's it. There's no right or wrong answer.
And there's no substitute reading.
There's no substitute reading. I mean, the thing is that
AI summaries don't count.
AI doesn't mean don't count.
Okay, all right. Finally, coffee or chai?
Coffee. I live on black coffee.
Okay, early mornings, late nights.
Early mornings, definitely.
Whiteboarding or Google Docs?
I don't even know what whiteboarding is. So Google Docs is my.
Okay. Basically, physically.
No, I know that. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be scalable. Yeah, Google Docs is.
Google Docs is okay. And anything new that you're learning right now? Any
Right
new
now?
skill that you're picking up?
I'm actually getting deep into the AI rabbit hole. The thing is, I'm
Okay.
constantly experimenting with. As you know, today every new software today has AI infused in it. So it's not
Yes.
just my Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT. For example, I've got this to-do list called Todoist, right?
Okay.
And they've got something called AI Ramble. That means you can actually just speak your thoughts and it'll actually automatically translate it into
Very cool.
things to do, dates, things like that. There's something called Replit, which I'm actually doing vibe coding. I'm actually telling my programmers, look, I'm a 57-year-old guy. I actually know how to create an app. What the hell are you guys doing? So the point is just playing around with stuff when I have free time.
Got it. Cool. It was wonderful chatting with you, Akhil. Thank you so much
I've
for taking
enjoyed
time
it.
out, and it was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much,
so
Sridhar. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.